I love carbohydrates. Today I want to talk a bit about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are a hot topic because so many people are cutting them out of their diet. It's going on a low-carb diet. It has become the trendy thing to do, and it's just like low-fat was in the 80s. It is a cycle. Things come and they go, and I want to talk a little bit about it because it is concerning. There are, of course, certain situations where being on a low carbohydrate diet is the best option and it's going to make you a better functioning human. There's been studies showing that certain types of epilepsy, some people with PCOS, some types of cancers even, and also people who have certain types of insulin sensitivity can really thrive on a low carbohydrate diet. Just because those people find that it's the best solution for them does not mean that it is the blanket solution for every person trying to lose weight. So a couple things that happen when people go on a low-carb diet right out of the gate. They'll drop a bunch of weight, so they think that that means that it's working. But what that really means is they have just lost a whole lot of water weight. Carbohydrate has a right in the word hydrate. Carbs get stored in one of two places, typically in your muscle or in your liver. And when it's in your muscle, it helps give your muscles shape. It makes them fill out. It helps you look like you have muscle tone, because you do. And the initial thing that happens when you cut out carbs is you lose a whole bunch of water weight, and that's because that water is being taken out of your muscles, and your muscles are just getting tighter because they don't have as much hydration in them. So just because somebody posts that they've lost 10 pounds in 5 days on a low carb diet doesn't mean that they've actually lost any fat at all. Sure, they've probably lost a little bit, but most of that is going to be water weight. So I want you to take all those results with a grain of salt, knowing that it's not necessarily fat that people are losing. In fact, a lot of times people are losing a lot of muscle tissue on a low carb diet. Again, there are times when that is still going to be the best option, but it is not usually for the general public. Just as how some people have shellfish allergies and have to cut shellfish out of their diet, that doesn't mean that it's bad for everybody. It's a bit of a ridiculous analogy, but I hope it helps to get my point across. So a couple things that you should know that might make you change how you feel about carbs, and maybe you can think of carbs as your BFF, as I think of them as mine. We want to be metabolically flexible. So we want to use fat when we're supposed to use fat for energy, but we also want to use carbs when we're supposed to use carbs for energy. So you often have probably heard of the fat burning zone, and on cardio machines, treadmills, it'll have that whole little section that shows you if you're in the fat burning zone or not, and even Fitbits will tell you if you're in fat burning or not. And basically, fat burning zone is a low intensity. You're supposed to use fat at rest or in low intensity exercise for your primary energy source. You're still using a little bit of carbs, but primarily fat. When you're doing high intensity workouts, you are primarily using carbs. Still a little bit of fat, but mostly carbs. If you're doing sprints, if you are doing high intensity interval training, if you're strength training, weightlifting, powerlifting, CrossFit, all of those types of things, and even a lot of fitness classes fall into that intensity level as well, you're using mostly carbs. So if you're on a low carbohydrate diet, you are not going to have a lot of energy for those workouts. You're also going to recover a whole lot slower. Primarily, you want to eat some starchy carbs before and after those intense workouts. And when you do that, studies have proven that you reduce the stress response, which means you recover faster and you have less soreness in the following days after a really heavy weightlifting session. You can work out more often, and you can build more stamina, more muscle tissue, whatever your goal is, and you're going to feel a whole lot better. You're going to have so much more energy. So much more energy. I think a big problem with carbohydrates is when people say, oh, I love carbs, they immediately think of the things like mac and cheese and potato chips and chocolate bars and candy and cakes and all those things that are carbs and are delicious, but that is not what carbs is. Carbs is a huge amount of different foods, fruits, vegetables, whole grains. Those are the things that you want to prioritize more than those junk foody carbs. And an interesting thing that is when clients and myself focus more on the quality of our carbohydrates, so eating those complex carbohydrates, the desire and urges for eating that other junk stuff, it goes down. Like, you still want to eat cake. I mean, who doesn't want to eat cake or have an ice cream cone now and again? But instead of those people who feel like they physically are unable to resist eating a piece of cake if it's sitting in front of them, if you're eating enough of the right types of carbohydrates, your body is not craving those other kinds. Like, eat some potatoes. I keep saying I'm going to make t-shirts that say stop being stupid and eat a potato, and every time I jokingly say it, 3 or 4 people tell me that they would buy that shirt, so maybe I should do it. It's impossible to control the quantity of carbohydrates you are eating if you are not concerned or looking at the quality of carbs you're eating. I eat a lot of carbs. In fact, it is like a second full-time job trying to make sure I eat all the food I need to eat in order for me to perform the level I do teaching all my classes and being as super active as I am. I need a lot of carbohydrates, I need a lot of energy. So I eat a lot of rice and pasta and bagels and bread and potatoes. Lots of potatoes get eaten around here. But what doesn't get eaten a whole lot is those other stuff. I do enjoy. I just posted a picture of ice cream the other day and cake a couple weeks ago, and I do enjoy those things, but they're not on my mind 24/7. I don't feel like I need to have them. Sure, I desire them now and again, but generally speaking, if there was a cake sitting on the counter, I could just leave it there. I don't feel compelled to go eat it because I'm getting enough carbs from those other sources. And I know, who am I? I'm not a dietitian. I am not someone with a doctorate in exercise physiology and sports nutrition. But what I am is somebody who invests in learning from those people, from dietitians, from experts that have their master's degrees in these topics. Those are who I get my information from. So I feel confident in what I say, and when I say you can live on a low carbohydrate diet, but it is not ideal for the bulk of the population. Most people should be eating at least 25 to 55% of their daily intake from carbohydrates. If you're someone super active like me, you're going to be closer to that 55%. If you're someone who's inactive, you're probably going to be closer to the 25%. And sure, if you are in that inactive group, you can probably get away with eating most of your carbs from vegetables, from fruit, from some rice, quinoa, things like that. But if you are closer to the 55, I often have to eat 300 to 400 grams of carbohydrates a day. There is no way I could eat enough vegetables in order to fill 300 to 400 grams of carbohydrates in a day. I'd have to eat so many tomatoes and green peppers, like I would have no time for anything else. So if you're less active, you can get away with eating less of that stuff. So people who typically don't eat a lot of bread or pasta and whatnot, if you're not super active, that's not a problem. If you are someone who is powerlifting, strength training regularly, doing a lot of higher intensity cardio, you are going to need some of those other starchy carbohydrates in order to have the energy to do your workouts well, to do your activities well, and to recover quickly. So don't think of carbohydrates as a blanket thing that are bad. Carbohydrates are carbohydrates. Protein is protein. Fat is fat. They all have a place in your diet. Experts agree a balanced diet includes all three. I know there's a lot of gray, murky water out there, and it's hard to know where to get your information. I'm happy to help you. I do offer nutrition counseling. I will link to a couple of my programs below that we can work one-on-one to figure out where you should fall. What I want you to take away from this is that we need carbohydrates in order to have that metabolic flexibility to burn fat when we're supposed to burn fat, burn carbs when we're supposed to burn carbs, to have a better functioning body, also to help manage those junk food carb cravings. Eating the right kinds of carbs and enough quantity of them will dissipate those cravings. And thirdly, it is impossible for you to manage the quantity of carbs you eat if you're not thinking about the quality. Eating like a whole case of Twinkies. You can throw back a case of Twinkies. I don't even know the last time I ever ate a Twinkie. But if you're just throwing those in, it's a whole lot easier to eat way too many carbs than it is if you are eating sweet potatoes. Like, you're gonna get full. I hope you found this video interesting. I hope maybe it's helping you think a little bit differently about carbohydrates and why they should not be villainized, and why you may want to make friends with them instead of thinking of them as your arch nemesis. Be friends with carbs and they will be friends with you. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. If I don't know the answer, I will get the answer from someone who's much smarter than me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon.